Hello, welcome to day 3. Today I'm going to be talking about getting involved in detox promoting activities. So like physical kind of activities that you can do. So these kinds of activities really focus on supporting and optimizing the body's natural detoxification processes. And so I'm just going to talk about 5 different activities that I think can be really helpful in promoting detox. So the first one is sweating. Okay, so any way that you can sweat is going to be helpful in removing or eliminating some toxins. And that's because sweating really plays a role in the body's natural detox processes by helping to kind of eliminate certain substances through the skin. And those substances can be things like heavy metals, alcohols, environmental pollutants, really anything like that can be excreted through the skin. So water-soluble toxins, so things like salts and urea, they can quite easily be excreted through the sweat. So that's because, they're generally dissolved in the water component of sweat because they're water soluble. So anything that's kind of a metabolic byproduct will be sweated out like that, that's water soluble. However, sweating can also contribute to the mobilization of toxins that are fat soluble or stored in fat tissues or fat cells. Okay. So as the body breaks down fat during certain activities that induce sweating, you find that the stored toxins, fat soluble toxins, like mold toxins, which we'll get to in another video, they will then be released and eliminated through the skin and through the sweat. So particularly exercise will be effective here at mobilizing and releasing toxins stored in fat tissue. But then also things like sauna or steam rooms can also be quite effective. And look, even hot baths where, you may not be doing a lot of fat soluble toxin release then because there's not any, fat being broken down in those situations, but at least you would be sweating out water soluble toxins. Okay, now tip 2 would be moving the lymph fluid. So the lymphatic system plays a really crucial role in filtering toxins, supporting the immune system, and just maintaining general fluid balance. So the main thing to note about the lymphatic system is that it doesn't have a pump like the circulatory system does. So the circulatory system has a heart that actively pumps blood around the body, right? The lymphatic system doesn't have that. So it relies on muscle contractions, breathing with the diaphragm, just any kind of body movement will help to circulate that lymph fluid. So I'm just going to give you a few different strategies to help move that lymph fluid around. So dry skin brushing is a great one, easy, cheap to do. So this is where you use a natural bristled brush. It's quite kind of spiky. And you gently brush the skin in the direction of the lymph flow. So basically towards the heart, okay? You can do that anytime really, but before a shower is ideal because you're usually naked, and so then you can use the brush easily. So, that can help stimulate lymphatic circulation. It can also exfoliate the skin to make sure that, you've got unclogged pores and things like that. And it's particularly useful if you can't move a lot. So if you are restricted in your physical abilities due to fatigue or brain fog or illness, then dry skin brushing can be a very effective tool. Now, the way you would brush is you would start from the extremities, so the wrists and the ankles, and brush towards the heart. Okay, so short brush strokes towards the heart. So you're essentially trying to manually move that lymph fluid towards the heart where it can be pumped. Okay. Next is you could have a lymphatic drainage massage. So typically you need to go to a trained massage therapist for this, so they can perform, this type of massage, where they use a very specific technique that is designed to stimulate the lymphatic system and to encourage the movement of lymph. Another great and relatively cheap way is to use a rebounder. So like one of those little mini trampolines, that can be an effective way to stimulate lymphatic flow. It's really about that up and down movement on the rebounder that helps to kind of open and close the little one-way valves that are in the lymphatic vessels. Okay, so rebounding in some way can be helpful. Another way that you can move the lymph is by alternating between hot and cold. This works, pretty easy in the shower. So if you alternate between hot and cold water in the shower, that can also stimulate circulation. So it's really about the contrast in the temperature that promotes the vasodilation and constriction, which then, subsequently leads to this improved lymphatic flow. And then the last one, but I think probably the most important, if you are able to, is just move. Any kind of body movement will get the lymph moving. So you want to avoid prolonged periods of sitting or standing. If you have to sit at work, you want to take breaks to move, to stretch, to change positions. And just in general, you want to move as much as possible. Okay, so exercising, going for a walk, stretching, anything you could, just even moving around the house is going to be helping that lymph to flow. The third activity is Epsom salt baths. So Epsom salt baths, they can help to relax muscles because it's typically, in the Epsom salts is high magnesium content. And so the magnesium can help to relax muscles. It can also promote circulation, which is really good for detoxification. And it can just kind of facilitate the elimination of toxins through the skin while you're sitting in that hot bath with the Epsom salts. The fourth activity is a castor oil pack. So castor oil packs are kind of a natural remedy believed to have detoxifying and anti-inflammatory effects. So there's not a lot of kind of, scientific evidence on their efficacy, but lots of people use them. I use them a lot with clients in practice and, for various health purposes, particularly for supporting detox, with a lot of benefit. I see that myself, and a lot of people tell me they feel better after they do castor oil packs. So the way in which they are thought to work is threefold. So the first is that they are thought to help lymphatic drainage. So they're often applied to the abdomen. The skin absorbs the oil. It penetrates deeper into the tissues, particularly if you use heat on top of it, and that can promote lymphatic circulation. Okay. The second thing is blood circulation. So applying these castor oil packs with heat is thought to stimulate circulation in the area where the pack is being used. And so that improved blood flow can help the body deliver nutrients more efficiently, oxygen to cells, and it can also aid in the removal of waste products. And finally, castor oil has anti-inflammatory properties. So it's believed that the application of the oil can really help reduce inflammation in the tissues, beneath where the oil is applied. And the final activity that I'm going to talk about is a coffee enema. Now, coffee enemas, again, it's a little bit contentious. Now, this one you do have to be, with the castor oil packs, as long as you start slowly, maybe do 10 or 15 minutes, at the start, rather than starting off with an hour of the pack, is just start slow. Typically, there's very few negative effects that I've ever seen. So the risk is very low. However, with coffee enemas, there are some documented cases where there have been quite significant negative effects. Most of them can be, you just being careful. So things like people burning themselves because they use hot water that's, it's too hot, not drinking enough before and after, using them if you have kind of severe liver issues can be a problem. So you just need to be really careful. I would say definitely do this under the supervision of a practitioner, and never start with the full dose of coffee. Always start very low and just test the waters. And as I said, if you have any known, like really significant liver disease or issues, I would say don't try coffee enemas. So the reason that they're used is because they can be a really potent way to enhance natural detoxification. And they do this in 3 different ways. So the first one, I think pretty obvious, easy to understand, is that they empty the colon, right? So your large intestines are responsible, like I've mentioned in previous videos, for storing, eliminating toxins and waste via the bowel movement, via the stool, okay? So when you do a coffee enema in particular, the lower intestines become distended because of the liquid that's in the colon, but the caffeine is also absorbed through the blood vessels in the walls of the intestines. So what happens is that the combination of the caffeine and the distension kind of triggers the smooth muscles in the intestines to contract, and makes you need to go to the bathroom. Okay, so that's the first one, is just manually kind of forcing that emptying of the colon. The second one is that it is thought to increase antioxidant levels in the body, which is very helpful for detoxification. Now, there is no direct evidence, there's been no research that I'm aware of that actually tests this idea. So whether antioxidants are increased as a result of doing a coffee enema. But what the research does show is that there is an impact of 2 of the compounds in coffee, so cafestol and carweol. These are compounds found in coffee, and there is research to suggest that those 2 compounds increase the level of glutathione, which is a very powerful antioxidant and one you've probably heard of in the detox space. So that's the second. The third way that coffee enemas help detox, and probably maybe the most important in my opinion, is that they promote the release of bile. Now, as I've already mentioned, your liver is one of your primary detox organs. It's constantly filtering your blood and removing harmful contaminants and compounds. But what happens is once the liver filters out the wastes then get collected in the gallbladder, and they're stored in the bile that is also stored in the gallbladder. So this bile becomes kind of laden with toxins, and that bile eventually flows into the small intestine or the digestive tract when you eat fat in your diet. Okay, so it goes into the GI, and it should technically go out via the feces or the stool. Sometimes it will recirculate because bile is often reused. But what happens with coffee enemas is that because of this belief that they dilate the blood vessels, that's how this idea that they stimulate bile flow came to pass. So coffee enemas are believed to stimulate bile flow, and that increase in bile flow essentially kind of speeds up your body's ability to detox and filter out those unwanted wastes and toxins. Okay, so that's the end of day 3. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much.